Hello, I'm Christopher Dirks, and this is my case study on Truman Elementary School. So we're going to start with category 1. So problem identification analysis. What do I know? So I know the demographics. I know we're talking about Truman Elementary School, which is a pre-K through 8th grade. They have 15% free and reduced lunch, 5% English language learners. This was my second year as the principal at this school, and previously I worked elsewhere in the district. Performance and perception. So reading scores are declining, but math is not. The Parent-Teacher Association is not happy with the declining reading scores. So there's some background on what I know about the problem. What do we need to know? So we need to know why the scores are declining so that we can come up with solutions. We need to know what our teachers are doing to help. So are they differentiating their instruction? Are they trying to meet kids at their level, which is another piece of differentiating instruction? And how is poverty impacting us? So I think this would be an important piece to know. So 15% of our students are on free and reduced lunch, so kind of analyzing how that 15% is performing. What actions need to be taken? We need to consider what the reading specialist is giving us as input. So as this was presented to me as an issue, I asked a reading specialist to go into classrooms and kind of analyze what's happening so that we can collaborate on that data and hopefully come up with some areas to improve. So that is the problem. Our reading scores are declining, but not our math scores. So this tells me that this is an instruction issue and not a student issue. So with that, the instruction, in collaboration with the reading specialist, we don't have enough differentiation going on in the classrooms. We're teaching way too much to the whole group and not enough to the individual. And according to our PTO president, we're not correcting students enough on their spelling errors. So part of that problem is me. So there's been, I don't feel like I have done enough evaluation of our instructional processes, and that's partially why this is our problem. So category 2, moving on. A plan of action. So presenting the data and the problem. So being open and honest is the first part of the plan of action. Letting the PTO know that yes, we understand that there is a problem, and accepting responsibility at my level for the lack of support that I've provided to the teachers. Another step in the plan of action is to apply for the ESSA grant, and to make sure that we're covering all areas of that grant, to give ourselves the best opportunity to be awarded that grant. And to do that, I would create a grant team that is focused on getting that grant for our school. The goal based on instruction, so that's an area for me that's kind of a professional growth goal. I need to set a couple goals on more evaluation of my teachers to make sure that those other pieces are happening in the classroom. And I also need to provide my teachers with more professional development geared towards differentiation. And that was a idea that was brought to me by the reading specialist. So plan for implementation. So start again by identifying the problem. So telling the PTO, yes, we know that there's a problem, share some of the data that goes with it, and then present my plan of action. So yes, there's a problem, but here's what we're going to be doing to fix that problem. The next step would be to apply for the grant. So in applying for the grant, you need to get permission from the district and get a letter of commitment from the district office. So part of being awarded the grant is showing, yes, we're going to commit to this, and this is what this money is going towards. And so having that from the superintendent would be important. Meet with the grant team and discuss goals and timelines and kind of map out a plan. From there, the application process can begin. I need to create an evaluation system for my teachers that I would start meeting with them quarterly. And then from there, kind of decrease as things improve. But the focus again would be differentiation and individualized instruction versus whole group instruction. And then the professional development piece, just making sure that I have a schedule in place that's going to build on each other to reach that goal of more differentiation and more individualized instruction. Category 3. So what is best for my students? What's best for my students would be more of that individual attention. So more paraprofessionals in the classroom to really help get away from that whole group kind of instruction, and maybe more smaller groups or more individualized instruction. The implementation of technology, I think that's going to help in more aspects than just reading. I think all across the board, education is turning more to technology, and so keeping my students current with that is going to be important. Improving the ESOL program, so although it's only a small portion of the data that is English language learner, making sure that they're supported as well is important. And using the best practices. So according to our reading specialist, we weren't using the best practices in our classrooms, and that's what's kind of, accounting for some of these issues. And so just making sure that we're using those best practices is important. Resolution with data to support. So sharing the data and making sure everybody's staying current on the data is important. And so kind of the data that I would like to analyze as we're getting these results is in demographics, looking at the free and reduced lunch separately, looking at race and how that's affecting or how each group is improving, and then looking at the ELL students as we provide them with more support. Perception data, giving surveys to the parents, to the PTO, to the teachers, as things are improving and as we're implementing these new strategies. I'd like to know the perceptions of that. The school processes, so my evaluation process and the percentage of time spent with the whole group versus individualized instruction. That would be important data to analyze and share. And the last one is the student learning, so that would be just the actual test scores. Category 4, feelings, thoughts, and values. So my feelings throughout this process were concerned, proactive, and engaged. So the concern piece was, why are we here? What's going on? Once I was presented with these issues, that's always going to be concerning. Then the proactive piece was, let's figure out a plan. Let's implement the plan. Let's get started on working these things out. And then the will this work piece, the engagement, was really like, putting the plan into action, getting the pieces moving. My thoughts through this were a little bit about my position and what it means to be the principal of a school, and that it really is on my shoulders to correct this issue. How could I argue my plan? So as I was going through and developing my plan of action, just kind of thinking, where could somebody poke holes in this plan, and kind of patching those up as I went. And I also wanted to be able to build up my team while still improving. So that kind of goes into my values. My team consists of my school, the PTO, most of all my students, my teachers are included in that, and just my values are to build that group and make people feel important, make people feel successful, while also identifying the fact that there's a problem and there needs to be some adjustments there. A couple areas where I would like to take some time to do some further investigation are the free and reduced lunch students. So is that group growing? Is it shrinking? And then using some of that information to kind of predict what's to come. I think that's going to be important. I think that students in that 15% who are maybe in poverty, I think that's a really important area to focus on. And kind of what's next. So as we continue to improve and looking down the line to, once we're passing, what can we do to exceed? And so that's something that, as a person in charge, it's important to kind of look at and think about what's coming next, but not doing that too much, and kind of, remembering where we are still. So there's some further investigation. Category 5. So 3 ways I use data for improvement. Schools can't improve unless students do. So I started with classroom practices and the teaching in those classrooms. And so the professional development and the fact that the best practices were not taking place. So based on the reading specialist analysis, we needed professional development to kind of move to those best practices that have statistics to back them up and have data to back them up. And so that's the data that was used to make that decision. Administration is the last level. So kind of building on, starts with students, then we go to teachers, then administration. So the fact that I had no data on teacher evaluation, that's something that I needed to kind of, find that data and create that data and begin analyzing that. And then I also used data in the communication. And so as things improve, kind of showing a trend in how things are improving, and this will lead to overall school improvement. 3 ways to communicate to the community. So PTO meetings would be a good place to start. So that's sometimes monthly, sometimes bi-monthly. This initiated the whole process originally to an extent. So the PTO brought to me the issue of spelling, and that kind of added to this need for improvement. And so that would be a good place to share information. Staff meetings. So again, those are monthly or bi-monthly, and it's not only through the professional development, but also through communication of the data. And then a weekly check-in. So sending out emails to staff, a different one to the PTO, a different one to the parents, that kind of shows the data that's needed to be seen by those groups, and so that they can track the improvement as we see it. 3 ways I use policies, laws, or knowledge. So knowledge, I use my knowledge of data analysis and types of data, trying to cover all my bases and talk about demographics and student learning and school processes and kind of covering everything. Laws, so protecting the student information and sharing all of this data. It's going to be really important to not use names and student ID numbers, and keeping everything protected. And then policies, the utilization of the PTO meetings and staff meetings. So that's something that's required. The staff meetings, at least, those are required. And so just being smart about how I use that time and how I take advantage of an opportunity where everybody's together to share that information. 3 ways I will keep the communication going. So the perception data, the surveys for parents and teachers, that's one way that I'm communicating with them that, okay, this is an issue, we're working on it, here's some questions about any improvements that you're seeing, things that you think are working with your children or your students, things that you think are not working, and that keeps that ownership there. It keeps the communication going with parents and teachers. The student learning data, so score reports, while protecting their identities again, is another way that I can share with my staff how the students are improving. And then the school processes data, that's one where I think I'm going to have to create a system in order to have like specific data that's tracking these percentage of time that's used for whole group instructions versus percentage of time that's used for individualized instruction, and having data to present or to represent differentiation. That's going to be kind of a tough one too. So that's something that I'm going to have to develop an easy way to share that information. But that's sharing that out in maybe an email or a newsletter. That's another way that I'm going to keep the communication going. So thank you for listening to my case study, and have a great day.